Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Salmons, and in each episode we'll uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today I'm excited to be joined by Antonio Pugliese, the founder of APF Coaching, an online fitness and coaching brand focused on helping people build strength, confidence, and sustainable habits that last beyond quick fixes or short-term motivation. Antonio, welcome to Founders Future. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And I'm actually very excited to dive in and learn more about your journey. So, with all of my guests, Antonio, I do like to start at the beginning. So if you don't mind briefly taking me back to what it was you was doing before you jumped into the coaching space, and then from there, what was the motivation behind it?
Yeah, so I've been in health and fitness all my life, and after I graduated college, I entered the workforce and I realized that the typical 9 to 5 avenue, whether it was the structure, whether it was, always feeling like I had someone watching over me, it didn't really seem like it was the route for me. And I felt like I had habits that I could take in an entrepreneurial setting and really kind of cultivate those and grow those. So after being in the workforce for a very short amount of time, I then decided to take my passion for health and fitness and then integrate it into this one-on-one coaching offer that I now do.
Awesome, I love it. And so, I feel like I understand you when you say you wasn't quite made for the 9 to 5. I fully took the same route and just completely ignored it. I feel like you either see that vision for yourself or you're just like, yeah, no, that's not for me. That reminded me of school. I don't know about yourself. But yeah, same feeling. Feelings mutual. So, how did you find that transition, obviously, into entrepreneurship, kind of having that burning feeling beforehand? How did you eventually find that when you moved over?
Yeah, so I always growing up found times in my life where looking back on it that I always actually, I think subconsciously wanted to take that entrepreneurial route. Transitioning though was definitely a lot harder than I anticipated. I'm always the kind of person that is always very self-accountable, that
Yeah.
always thrives on structure. So while those things are good, I think creating that for myself in an entrepreneurial setting to hold myself to a certain standard, whether it was my systems, my automations, my back end, my front end, things were
Yeah.
definitely a challenge, especially to start off.
Yeah, and I feel a lot of founders have that kind of in the same boat because find themselves in the same boat because you do have your zone of brilliance and for you that is fitness. So kind of muddling everything together. There's a lot of hats to wear as a founder. But let's dive into the business a little bit more so the listeners
Yeah.
can have some context moving forward. So when it comes to APF coaching, who would you say is your ideal client? Who do you really, really love to work with? And then from there, how is it you help them and how do you support them along that fitness journey?
Yeah, good question. So my ideal client is typically that busy 9 to 5 or like corporate individual or professional. So maybe those that are excelling in the workplace or, a middle to upper class salary that maybe, feel like they have a lot of these things in place in the rest of their lives. They have the house, they have the car, they have the family, they have that part of the lifestyle. But when it comes to their health and fitness, they see that they're kind of falling behind. But because they have skills of pushing themselves in parts of their life, they really want to use that to take this step forward. So the way that I typically integrate that is these individuals, everyone could say you have the same 24 hours in the day, but everyone's 24 hours may be structured differently. So I really try to use sustainable habits and what I like to call habit stacking to allow them to slowly and gradually create small changes in their life. And through that, I'm there for them 24/7 accountability, 24/7 support in workouts, nutrition, and mindset to really help them take that next step so they can match the health and fitness aspect of their life to the rest of their life.
Love it. So very high touch point throughout the program as well. As you're saying, being contacted 24/7. I love the fact that you're doing a full holistic approach. So as you say, you've got the nutrition there, the mindset and the fitness. And it can only for me, I understand time comes into it and obviously everyone is completely different. But I feel like once you kind of make those strides in fitness and those sustainable long-term strides, it affects your whole life in such a positive way, right? Like in business, in at home, it's just such an uplifting thing for yourself. It's a crazy.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
Awesome. So when it comes to your clients, I'm assuming you work with men and women as well. How do you kind of break that down? So do you kind of set that forward with a goal and then there's a certain amount of time to get to that? How long do you tend to spend working with a client?
Yes. So right now my client base is about 50/50, actually male, female. And most individuals, the typical standard for my program is set for around 6 months. A lot of programs in the health and fitness space actually are three, but I found
Mm.
through other people that have even come into my program, three doesn't typically seem to be enough time. Could be 12, could be three. I find six is about the sweet spot. And what I do is my program, I run it in phases. So there's 2 months where they're setting the foundation of the habits and structure. There's 2 months where they're fine tuning. And then there's 2 months where they're kind of maintaining and maybe making small changes here and there. There's the few off scenarios where, like I said, maybe it's 3 months or maybe it's 12, but most case, I would say 70 to 80% of the individuals, I would run them through a 6 month program.
Nice. I think that's a nice amount of time as well, especially as you say, the way you're doing the habit stacking, which is a really great approach because it doesn't overwhelm people when it comes to fitness. That's usually the first thing that deters people is like, I'm going to have to change my whole lifestyle. But it's like, as you say, if we do it progressively and over a longer period of time, it's just so much better for the mindset and burnout when that comes into it as well.
Spot on. You read right into my brain.
Awesome stuff. And Antonio, I'm very intrigued to find out how you go about acquiring your customers. So obviously the fitness world is a very noisy space online. There's a lot of coaches. Like, how do you go about like making sure that your voice is being heard? Like, what channels and methods are you really finding most effective at the moment?
Yes. So I, coming into the health fitness space, was either told from external factors or even people in the space that, like you said, it's saturated. And while statistically the quantity of coaches, health and fitness professionals is high, I feel like the quality, can be night and day depending on who you work with.
Couldn't
So I think
agree
the
more.
biggest thing is the quality of the small details. For example, my tone in my content, the production of my content. When I outreach to somebody, am I coming off as an authentic human, or does it look like I'm just trying to get a sale? And as of right now, I only primarily do Instagram, as I find typically with my demographic, that's where most of them are found. I have tried Facebook. I also am in the process of getting YouTube set up for more like middle funnel, longer length content. But the biggest thing for me is standing out through authenticity and being able to take that next step, like in a true way. But yes, I also use Instagram as my main platform.
Awesome. And I like the fact that you're kind of starting to integrate YouTube as well, because I feel like long content is definitely coming back into play with that, as you say, like building the trust online, I think is the key to well, it is the key to marketing. But do you run any form of like pay ads or anything, or is it just organic content, just being authentic and putting that content out there for people to see and find, I guess?
Yeah, so I over time, every once in a while, like I have run a smaller ad of some kind. I haven't done it on a larger scale. I've just been really trying to maximize my organic content before I go full scale into that ad space, and that's really where a lot of my time and energy has gone.
Yeah, into making content, right? Doing
Yeah.
that. When are those many hats that you do wear as a founder? And I suppose are you still a solopreneur at the moment as well?
Correct, yes. Well, I have one assistant, one virtual assistant, but just her and I, yes.
No, so how are you coping, like juggling those hats? I suppose there must have been a lot of new skills coming into it as well that you had to pick up and learn, like maybe in sales and marketing
Yeah.
beforehand.
I think the biggest thing I realized was when I got into the space, I just wanted to be a coach, right? And I know a lot of people say like entrepreneurship is hard and you have to do all these things. The way that I look at it personally is it's like a forced fast track of self-development. A lot of these things that you don't think of. And so to answer your question, jumping into that, I really was like, okay, there's two ways I could do this. Is I could say, I want to be a coach, but I don't want to be a content creator. I don't want to be a sales rep. I don't want to be a marketer. But for me to be the best coach, I have to be these things. It's not if, it's how, when, etc. So I think mentally reframing it from the start has allowed me to learn better skills. For example, if I'm taking a sales call, how to handle an objection. If I'm marketing, I'm creating content, how do I portray myself authentically to land with the client? A lot of those little things, but I would really attribute it starting off to mentally how I looked at it because I feel like that set me up ever since.
Yeah, a really good way to frame it, as you say, like that mindset piece behind it. And also, as you look to grow and scale the company, obviously your main goal is to be a coach. But if you have people coming on board, you want to know every step, right? So as you get bigger and hopefully the company gets bigger as well, you do want to be knowing that people are doing those jobs to the positions that you had before. Just help with, again, with like the operations, everything back end that you were talking about before. It just makes sure you know the job's being done properly.
Absolutely.
You have to know every step.
Yes.
Is that one of your, I suppose, as we look to the future, like the next 6 to 12 months, what are your goals and your ambitions for scaling a business? Like, what does that vision look like for you?
Yeah, I would say there's a few different key ones. The first one, as of this year was, I mean, it's only been 2 days in, but was to get everything set up with my assistant. That's been actually a more recent thing that I got finalized. I would say throughout the next year, some of my other goals, whether it's like just structurally, financially, things like that, is I would like to hire, once my client capacity gets a little bit higher, I would like to hire an assistant coach to help me with fulfillment because I can only handle X amount of clients per time to the fullest of my capabilities, as well as in terms of whether it's profit or income or revenue, I would definitely like to double my current income for the business. So I also can reallocate that to other mentors or just, people help me scale and other things like that. But overall, it's really just maximizing what I have, increasing my client capacity, increasing fulfillment, just so then not only can, yes, can make more money, but I could just have a more of a quality program.
Yeah, 100%. And all that will come. Like it's like reframing that first time. As long as you're actually helping people and doing the right things, everything else will come through it. So that's having a main focus. Where are you probably finding out the biggest challenge for yourself, Antonio, in taking that next step in scaling the business?
Yeah. So it's been in different phases. Over the past year or so, I've noticed there was three or four main ones. The first one was my messaging. I feel like verbally, I can express myself. I feel like I have the tonality and the diction and I can express things, but written, I always, for some reason, had a bit more of a challenge when it was on a one-on-one scenario or trying to communicate something, whether it was trying to rush into a conversation too quickly, whether it was not identifying a pain point. That was something I always struggled with. So that's been one thing that I've really been trying to maximize and I'm continuing to maximize going forward. The second thing would be my content. So I was posting very generic things. I wasn't targeting anybody truly. And as the saying goes, if you try to, sell to everybody, you're selling to no one. And I was being a little bit redundant with that. And I didn't realize how impactful that was on not only my lead flow, but just the quality of my business and like building that trust and reputation. The third thing would definitely be early on, I had a really hard time with sales, whether it was taking calls, whether it was setting the intention for the call, overcoming an objection. I had a really hard time just setting myself as the authority on the call and really
Yeah.
closing that deal by a long shot. And then the fourth one, I would say would really, this is kind of a collective of the other three, but I like to call it like the four C's. So content, or excuse me, content, conversations, calls, closes, that like entire pipeline to get somebody in start to finish. At least in the online social media space with health and fitness, I noticed there were some gaps. So that kind of combines what I said earlier.
Yeah.
But those three things, and then that fourth thing would be kind of a summary of everything I just said.
Yeah, so just really having that whole back end really in play. And again, when it comes to sales, half of it is just like having the confidence in yourself. A lot of people, it's like that imposter syndrome that kind of sneaks into your mind when you're on the calls. Like, am I good enough to do this? Yes, just push it out there. Did you kind of go through any training or did you get mentors to help with that kind of thing? Like, how did you adjust to learning the new skill?
Yeah, so I have had two mentors specifically for health and fitness coaching online. I've also had one mentor specifically just for content. So whether it was specifically sales, I've gone straight into the programs. I've talked straight to their sales reps of these companies that are making 6 figures a month, 7 figures in the year, and really just getting whether it was my tonality or when I said something, or it's not what you say, it's how you say it, all these little things. And really going straight to the source has limited the amount of friction that I've made for myself, but it's also made learning that skill a lot easier and a lot less stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine. And as you say, just adds to the overall business. So investing that little bit in yourself to learn that skill is such an important part. And what would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever received about scaling a business?
It's a really good question. I think the best piece of advice I've ever gotten is this is more business related, but I would say more like personal development related, kind of intertwining the two, is the grass isn't always greener on the other side, it's greener where you water it.
I
And
like it.
I think keeping that in mind on, for example, the days in business where quote unquote it seems like everything's going wrong. And unfortunately, I would be wrong and lying if I didn't sit here and said I had days where I didn't just want to abandon ship and do something else and try some other field or anything. But I think reframing that in the sense of, the grass is greener where I water it is I could go somewhere else. I either might not have the capacity, the structure, the mindset, or just anything for it. Whereas I know what I'm trying to build here. The intention is here, and I need to keep watering, and it's just a matter of time before it becomes what it's supposed to be.
Love that. That's some Hormozy mindset, that stuff right
Yes.
there. Just keep going. Like, and it is true, where you put your efforts, the grass will grow. And Antonio, I can hear from your voice, you actually have a lot of passion for this. So it's like, just keep going and doing that. I have one final question to ask you though before we log out. So if you could go back in time to a younger self and you could only leave yourself with one piece of advice moving forward, something you know now, but that you didn't know then, what would you say to yourself?
This is a phrase that I really think I've utilized in a day-to-day in business. And you could use this philosophically, you could use this personally again, but I think really specifically with business is, you know, if I was talking to my younger self, I would definitely say you're on your own. You always have been and you always will be. No one, similar to what Alex says, is no one's coming to save you. And I think the biggest thing I would tell myself is never play the victim card, never have that mentality because that's only going to deter you and make things harder than they already are. So, you can get knocked down, you can get punched, but the biggest thing is, you're on your own. And if you don't make this for you, whether it's the business, the structure, the finances, the fulfillment, the impact, no one's going to do it for you. And that's something I constantly remind myself, and I would definitely go back and tell myself that if I had the chance.
I love it. Amazing. And such a solid piece of advice to end the podcast on. Antonio, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your incredible journey and insight with us. Where can our listeners reach out best to work with you or connect with you if they would like to do so?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's been an honor and a privilege. And in terms of connecting with me, the main place would definitely be my Instagram. It's at pugliese.fitness, whether it's my content, whether it's you want to connect with me personally, whether it's filling out an application, anything. That would definitely be my main hub to really interact and reach out to me.
Amazing. So at Pugliese.fitness. To our listeners, please go and drop Antonio a message and check out all the amazing stuff that he's doing. And do not forget to subscribe to Founders Future by wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you're really looking to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to hop on a call with one of our team and discover how we went from zero to $30 million per year in less than 3 years. But until then, keep on climbing and we will see you on the next one.